Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Thanks for being here. Got a lot to go over, a lot going on in the world. We got this Tim Walz stuff. We've got the Minnesota fraud. We've got Maduro. So much going on. It's just wild. You know, this breaking news today, just this morning, Tim Walz dropping out of the governor's race. I don't think it was hard to see that coming. He's responsible for billions and billions of dollars getting stolen from the taxpayers. Doesn't really seem to even think it's a big deal, and just kind of brushes it off. And then anybody who brings it up, he tries to excoriate them as being white supremacists and racists and stupid shit like that. I've for a long time now, I've listened to the liberals talk, and yeah, my mind always is baffled because I'm like, how are these people say such stupid stuff? Like, why would you defend the people who stole billions of dollars? What kind of crazy rationale must you have, or crazy um, philosophy about the world and how it should work in politics, that you would ever say, come out and defend people who steal billions of dollars from you? I've really tried to work through that and figure that out. It seems like it's kind of a chaotic web of contradictory beliefs that these people hold, and to where the only solid beliefs they really hold are the beliefs that are the most crazy beliefs you could have. And the ones that are just normal beliefs, they're like, well, I don't know. You can't really say this. You can't really say that. Is it a woman? Isn't it a woman? Stupid shit like that. Um, and so I've been I'm trying to figure out, like, how does this philosophy work? What is really behind all this? And how do they put these things together? How do they end up just like in Minnesota, just not even caring? Well, even best case scenario, they don't care, and that they were just naive, bad governors and bad overseers of the public money. Worst case scenario is that they were in on it and that they wanted it to happen. And AG, he's meeting with these people too. They're talking. He's getting campaign funds from these people, these fraudsters who are ripping off the state. So now the theory is basically they were in on it. The Democratic leadership was in on it. They did it deliberately, and the money was funneled back into their coffers, into the Democratic coffers. So they make this deal with all these social programs that we're going to give you guys billions of dollars. Then that money goes to those NGOs, nonprofits. The money then, miraculously, those same NGOs and nonprofits end up donating money to the Democrat Party, right? So circulating the money, they're getting the money back for themselves so that they can stay in power. It's twisted and it's disgusting. And I'm not for a second do I think it's only the Democrats doing that. No, I think it's both sides. I think it's maybe the Democrats are doing it 10 times worse because they tend to be in control of most of the social programs and things like that, and a lot more familiar with them. It's going to be wild when we start finding out what's going on in California. I bet we'll have $100 billion easy of fraud there. It might be harder to prove because they think that they're probably better at siphoning it through all these different groups. Okay, how can you build a quarter mile of a high-speed rail, and it cost you $18 billion? Where does that money go? Where does the $18 billion, literally, where does it go? You know how long it would take to get rid of $18 billion? You can't just put it over here in this bank account. You've got to funnel it off to all these different people who are claiming that they're doing things when they're really not. And then they all end up donating to Gavin Newsom's campaign for governor. That's what's going on. So maybe it's not that these people actually believe in any of these programs. They just see it as a way that they can stay in power. Because power is really what they want, especially leftists. They think that they have the moral duty to be in power, the moral obligation, and basically a blessing from the highest to stay in power. They don't really they don't really they don't want to share power because they think if they let it up, then everything will go corrupt. But in an ironic twist, they're the ones who corrupt everything. They are the ones who claim that they're the moral saviors of the country, and at the same time, they're the ones responsible for the breakdown of the society, which they think is a good thing because now they're going to reprogram it to be the right way, the way that the lefties think it should be. This never works. It never has worked. It never will work. It's just a corrupting influence that destroys and has no positive benefit, no positive vision for how to build something good. This is why Venezuela went from being the richest country in South America to the poorest once the socialist lefties took over power and robbed everybody of all their goods and spent it like they always do on themselves and their friends. Every time there's these socialist movements and leftists get way too much power, they always raid the coffers of the country, siphon it off to their friends and to themselves, end up living in mansions, private jets. If you look at our political class, how does somebody go into politics with $100,000 net worth and then 4 or 5 years later have $46 million? That isn't even possible to be investing all of your money to get that kind of a rate of return. So the money's coming from somewhere else. It can't just be investments in stock portfolio and their insider trading. There has to be money coming from somewhere else. That's just too much money to be able to make, even if you're insider trading. So Ilhan Omar, came into office with what? It's like a $35,000 negative net worth. And then 5 years later, she's worth $30 million. And her husband's hedge fund is like $1 trillion hedge fund. Where is all this money coming from? We need to know. We need to get to the bottom of it because it's something is going on. I bet this fraud thing is going to be, we're talking trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. I wouldn't be surprised if our entire debt, $38 trillion, is all this fraud bullshit of these people siphoning money through NGOs, nothing actually getting it done, no intention of actually getting anything done, except to bring the money, give the money to your friends and get the money back for your political campaign and for your personal benefit. So sending money overseas to different NGOs, not to the governments, but to NGOs that operate in these other governments, sending billions of dollars in there. And then those run by your friends, your political friends, that money then oddly comes back into the United States, into the pockets of the Democrats. They've been running this scam for a long time now. We're just finally caught on. We've been asleep at the wheel. They've been taking advantage and taking advantage and taking advantage while the normal people out here feel like we're getting squeezed and more tax and less benefit. And what's really going on? Who's running this country? Where's all the competent leaders? While we're trying to do that and we're feeling the pain of it, these guys have $1 trillion fraud schemes, a racket going on where they're getting themselves rich and they don't give a shit about you. And it's good to see that the Democrat Party is collapsing because it's the most corrupt party that has ever been. And we're seeing it, just the very start of it now is starting to reveal itself. Just the tip of the iceberg is Minnesota. And Minnesota, of all places, who would think Minnesota would be so corrupt? I like Minnesota. It's a beautiful state, great people, until the lefties get in charge. And Minnesota's had a long slide downwards into this leftist psychopathy. It used to be about kindness and treating people well. And now it's not that at all. Now it's about power and money. And they'll do whatever they have to do to take it. They'll steal, they'll fraud, but all the while they'll be patting themselves on the back as if they're the noble, righteous ones. Well, the jig is up. We've discovered what you've been up to, and we're going to look into all of it. And people better go to prison for this shit. This is ridiculous. I cannot wait until they start looking into Illinois. Illinois is going to be so corrupt, it is going to make your head spin. Washington, New York, California especially. How do you spend $24 billion in California, $24 billion to fix homelessness? Yeah, I mean, sounds noble, right? I mean, they could probably bought everybody a $500,000 house for as much money as they spent. No, what do? Well, they give the money to NGOs. Then those people give the money to their friends, and they hire ridiculous consultants. And then they spend $1 billion on consulting, and they do a test build out here with these people, and they have developers that never get anything done, but somehow get paid a bunch of money. And before you know it, you lose $24 billion. Not a single person who is homeless gets housed, and you actually end up with more homeless people. How fucked up is that? $24 billion gone to fix homelessness, and now you have more homeless people. Well, it also has to do with like what Elon Musk was talking about with the incentive structure. If you get paid per homeless person as an NGO, you get grant money per homeless person. Is it? Do you really want to end homelessness? Because if you have no homeless people, you don't have a job anymore, and you don't get any money, and your friends don't get any money. So they're incentivized to have more homeless people. And it's ridiculous. It's so dumb. And it has to be set up that way in order to scam. No normal, reasonable person would incentivize you to have more homeless people while you're claiming to fix the homeless problem. That doesn't make any sense. We all know it's bullshit. So Tim Walz was resisting dropping out of the governor race because he, in his little pea brain, thought that he still had a chance after all this is going on. And now Minnesota people in Minnesota, they have been talking about this for years. I think it's like 2014, there was people blowing the whistle on all this fraud. And they just, don't care, don't mention up. You know, there's one of the problems that the people in Minnesota have too is that they are nice, and it really fucked them over. They don't want to think people are intentionally deceiving them. They want to think the best of people. They want to think that everybody's a good person and nobody steals unless they really have to and to get by. And, you know, it's maybe not right, but that's understandable. You know, you don't hold people accountable like you should because you're too nice. You don't throw people in prison as much as you should because you're too nice. You just try to think that everybody meek and mild. It's that Scandinavian background. It's too weak. It's too nice. It's too open. It's too accommodating. And that does not work out well when you get lefties in your. And so this is what led to the leftism, is this sort of weak softness, the inability to have standards and demand that people obey them. They can't do that. That's why Sweden is overrun with a bunch of Muslims, and they're the rape capital of Europe because they were too nice to not let them in. It seems meany to say you can't come into our country, even though we have so much and you have so little. We should share because that would be a nice, kind thing to do. Okay, you can think that. Stupid as hell. This is the same attitude Minnesota had. just, hey, we're not gonna fight. We're not gonna, we don't want to cause a scene. You guys just come in here. And so they never really oversee, they never enforce laws. They just kind of hope that everybody has this trustworthiness to them because Scandinavians, Swedes especially, are trustworthy. So they think everybody's trustworthy. It's a very naive way to view the world. It works if you just live amongst people like you, if you just are Swedes, you know, but that's not the world we live in anymore. So unfortunately, you get multiculturalism and diversity and all this stuff. It does necessarily break down trust between people, and you have to be more suspicious. And everybody, the whole culture gets more suspicious because you don't know what the rules are and the standards are of the other person who didn't grow up in the same culture community as you did. Now you have to be suspicious of everybody and you have to hold everybody accountable. This is the time when the rules matter the most. And you have to have people who are willing to enforce the rules for the good of the society. When you live in a high trust society, you can just expect people to follow the rules and you basically don't have to enforce anything because people are just good people and they just know the rules because you all share this common culture. But when you start overlapping different cultures and different ethnicities and backgrounds and all this stuff over top of each other, you start getting trouble. You start getting problems, especially if you're not paying attention and if you're trying to be nice and you're following all these stupid, politically correct bullshit, woke stuff where you can't say anything and you can't enforce laws if the person's a minority. And this is where these people get themselves in trouble because, hey, they're Somalis, can't say anything bad about them because they have dark skin. So you can't say anything bad because then you'd be a racist or something. No, they're stealing your shit. So there's nothing racist about stopping them. This is so dumb. But anyway, I've been reading this book here. You guys see it, The Identity Trap. I recommend it. It's very good. It's a kind of difficult to understand, but it's a pretty good book. I'm not finished with it yet, but he basically goes over what's going on with all this identity stuff on the left and why they seem to make such weird decisions and weird calculations about all this stuff. Why it seems that there's double standards, there's hypocrisy. It's like you can't ever quite figure out what the real rules are because one day they're anti-Maduro, the next day they're pro-Maduro. The one day they're they claim to be for the black community while they don't give a shit about the black community. What is going on here? Why all these things? Why this incessant drumbeat against whiteness? Why the minority voice always matters more than the majority voice? All this kind of stuff, and what's really behind all that stuff? And he talks a lot about that, and I really appreciate it because it helps us lefties understand what the philosophy is behind your crazy shit. But one of the things he says here is what's called standpoint theory. And I'm going to just read a little bit here. It says citizens drawn from different groups can never truly come to understand one another. Those who are comparatively privileged should therefore defer to the factual assessments and political demands of those who are comparatively marginalized. Okay. So citizens drawn from different groups can never truly come to understand one another. Okay. So let's apply this to this Minnesota fraud thing. The white native Minnesotans can never truly understand Somalis. Okay. With me? Those who are comparatively privileged should therefore defer to the factual assessments and political demands of those who are comparatively marginalized. So the white Minnesotans should defer to the Somalis. If the Somalis say they need X, Y, and Z, then they should give it to them. If the Somalis say they need daycares for their kids, then you should give it to them. If the Somalis say they need autism clinics specifically for them, then you should give them to them, because you don't understand them and you can't understand them, and you're obligated to defer to them based on their factual assessments and their political demands. See, this makes no sense, common sense wise or logically, because why? Just because they're a marginalized group, are their facts better? Are their demands more necessary? So what the Somalis did was they played this playbook and they did this. They made their demands, and there was nothing that these lefties could do to stop it and to say no, because they have no philosophical basis for saying no, because it's a moral duty that they have to say yes. And so the Somalis played them like a fiddle, and they're like, oh shit, yeah, well, give us this and give us that and give that. We need all these things, and we need more and more money and more money and more money. And then they just stole it. They just lied, but you can't think they lied because you don't understand them. So you have to take them at face value and their factual assessment. Okay? This is a little bit of how this weird philosophy sort of works. That it necessarily puts the majority at a disadvantage when dealing with the minority, and the minority is always like the Somalis. They're noble, they're better. They, if you say no, that means you're just an oppressive majority who doesn't want to share all of your misgotten gains. And then you end up getting $9 billion stolen from you. And you're buying some Somali a high-rise apartment building in Nairobi. Or you're some guy in Somalia is now driving a Mercedes Benz, living in a mansion. Because they took this money and they sent it back to Somalia, to their tribe, to their friends, to where if they get deported or what, kicked out, they got a pile of money waiting for them back there. So somehow they were able to pull off this racket. I'm not entirely sure that it's not with the help of the political class in Minnesota and possibly other states. And it seems now that there's a network of these Somalis across states all doing the same thing. And it's always in liberal states, because of this standpoint theory. That's part of it. So you can't criticize, you can't say, you can't think they're lying, you can't judge them, you can't anything. And they know this. And so they're okay with lying to you, because from their culture, it's basically get whatever you can, however you can get it. And if your stuff gets taken from you, that's on you. You weren't very good at securing your stuff, were you? You were a pretty pathetic person because you couldn't secure your stuff against me taking it. See, it's a totally different mindset. So in some ways, the standpoint theory is accurate, right? We can't entirely understand that mentality because that isn't what the U.S. mentality is. We're a high trust society where we work together across people from broad spectrums, and we know that we're going to be honest with each other and you can trust us. We can ship something across the country to another person, and we know that that person's going to give us our money, not just take it. Now, these other cultures, they don't believe that. Why would we expect them to believe that? That would be us imposing our culture onto them, right? So if we assume that they're trustworthy, that's us forcing our majority rule way of doing things onto them. So we just need to take them as their culture. Oh, your culture doesn't believe in that. Your culture believes in taking whatever you can get. Okay, well, then we probably should only give them the things that we think that they should have, not the demands that they make, not the fake outrage that they can drum up. And so this weird identity trap, this guy calls it, it leads to corruption, it leads to breakdown, it leads to fraud, it leads to all kinds of terrible consequences. And in the same time, at the same time, the lefties who are causing all of that are going to act like they're the noble, the moral, the amazing, blessing the masses across the world. And the amount of fraud that happened during the Biden administration is going to be astronomical. I mean, fraud everywhere. The most corrupt administration that we've ever had. Everything was distorted. Everything was fake. Everything was lied about. All the worst decisions were made. You look at it's like, making the opposite decision, the worst decision for the country you could make, was the best decision in their minds. And it's most of them are just so that they could take power. Well, it backfired on them, thank God, because who would have seen it coming? I mean, we were at a really, really sad point there. If Musk hadn't bought X and Trump hadn't won, we would be in a much different situation today. The screws would just keep tightening on all of us, and all of our hard work and our money and the things we've for generations worked so hard to achieve in this country would have kept being pillaged and given away to people who don't deserve it. Probably would have been $9 billion more stolen from Minnesota. The only reason this is even a thing is because Trump got elected, or else they would have just kept looking past it. No one would have known about it. No one would have done anything about it. But now with X, we can see what's really going on in the world. The media can't hide this story from us. They can't hide the fact that it's almost 100% Somalis who are doing these scams. Not only the childcare scam, that's the most recently talked about one, but I've done videos on this before. Healthcare scams, Medicaid scams, autism scams. There's even housing scam. There's scams all over the place. These people don't work. Not 80% of them are on welfare. And then they steal billions of dollars. They're not putting any money into the system. They're just taking. And this goes for the Somali community across the world. The Netherlands did a study about who were net benefits and net negatives to their society, money-wise, who's paying in, who's bringing economic value, and who's taking money and taking benefits and taking help. They found the Somalis were the least beneficial group. They cost the most. Over their lifetime, cost the society over $700,000. Not contributing a single thing. You're losing money every year on Somalis because they don't want to associate. They don't want to be part of your group. They simply want to come there and leech off of you. Now, that's hard for a lot of us to understand because we wouldn't do that. We're wired differently. Our culture is different. We can't even imagine thinking like that. And so the number one group in this Netherlands study that came to the Netherlands and took the least and produced the most was Americans. They were a $550,000 benefit to the society over their lifetime. So they're contributing and they're putting in, and that's the American mentality. These people from these third world countries don't have an American mentality as a group. They have their own culture, they have their own beliefs, they have their own way of doing things. And so we can't be so naive as to think they're just going to slide right into being an American. So in that case, I believe there is some validity to what this guy is saying, that citizens drawn from different groups can never truly come to understand one another. So if we can't come to understand one another, why would we let other groups in? That just seems like a recipe for disaster. If you guys would like and subscribe and comment on this video, that would be great. I would appreciate that. I've got the comments open, everybody. If you got something to say, I got them open right here. I'll read them and we can have a conversation. So if you've got any questions or anything, statements you want to do, put them in the comments on YouTube. So yeah, Tim Walz, broad, sucky governor. This Nicholas, what about this Nicolas Maduro thing that happened over the weekend? Trump just goes in, you just go in there and just take a foreign leader and bring him back to the U.S. Like, that's what we're doing. Now, apparently he had an arrest warrant out, which you can apparently put out arrest warrants for leaders of other countries. But I'm not sad about it. I think Maduro sucked. He was a bad guy. I think he was, from Chavez and Maduro, both very oppressive, and this is what only people in free democratic capitalist societies talk about socialism and praise it. All the people who live under it hate it. All the people who've lived under communism hated it. They want to get the hell out of there and come to the U.S. But then it's the people in the U.S., usually, white liberal ladies who don't know shit about anything and have their brains rotted by this woke shit. They're the ones who think, oh, socialism, 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 socialism. And they never lived under it a day in their life. They've never studied it a day in their life. They don't know anything about the history of it. They don't know anything about the philosophy of it. They just think it sounds nice to, give stuff to people. So why should there be whatever? We got billionaires, so let's give their stuff to these people. Well, you're going to let the government mediate that? And you don't think that's going to end up with a bunch of corruption? And it's so easy to know this. If you're going to have the government take money from a bunch of money from the, we see it should be plainly obvious to everybody by this point that the government cannot manage money. They can't do it. They can't do it without being corrupt. They give it to their friends. They give it to NGOs. It gets taken. It gets frauded. It gets stolen. It funnels back to politicians. The government should not be managing the money. Now, if we want billionaires to help the poor, then we should have a culture of them doing that. Having the government forcefully take it from them and redistribute it never works out well for the society. The poor are still poor. You could take $100 trillion of money and the poor will still be poor. It doesn't fix anything. It adds more problems. So now you got normal people paying in taxes that has now ended up in Somalia in the hands of some terrorist group. Just let that guy have his own money. It's going to do more good for his community if he has it than if the government has it. Big government never works. It gets corrupt, especially social programs, welfare programs. They just get corrupted. The money gets taken. It goes to pet projects. It destroys the culture and the will of the country. So maybe this was the plan. I wonder. Maybe this was the plan to destroy America, is to get more social policies, more socialism implemented. But one of the things I was thinking about lately was, since socialism, it should be obvious to everyone that socialism never works and it's a destructive force, that it almost makes me think that somebody's trying to destroy the Democratic Party by getting them all to like and think like socialists. Is there some nefarious person behind all this stuff that's actually their desire is not for the Democratic Party to be powerful and a good party, but in order to destroy it, you make it believe in socialism, because that destroys everything every time. It's destroyed every country that it's been in, and it'll destroy the Democratic Party. So if you really wanted to destroy the Democrats, you would want them to be socialists, because it's not sustainable. And there might be some short-term problems that come along with that and short-term pains for the rest of the country. But ultimately, it's going to collapse in on itself after, about 20, 25 years. So I might have to look into that a little more. Maybe somebody was trying to undermine the Democrats, and that's why they got so socialistic. They think it's because they're noble and they've progressed and they've become enlightened. But maybe somebody's just trying to destroy them, because nothing will destroy things like socialism. But what happens is, as it's destroying, it's telling you you're being benefited, and it's for your own good. And it's because it's such a noble cause that we're undergoing. And then you end up with people like Maduro, who are corrupt and just using the money to incentivize him to make himself rich and all of his corrupt friends rich. And that's it. And that happens every single time. The bureaucrats and the political class are the ones who get rich. The poor get poorer. The politicians get rich. That's it. So you might not like in capitalism that the rich get richer, but the poor don't get as poor. The wealth doesn't get as concentrated in few hands as when the government forcefully takes everything and redistributes it like socialism. All right, well, let's take a look at some clips here. So here's the Fox News announcement that Walz has dropped out. Governor Tim Walz has dropped out of the 2026 Minnesota governor's race amid a multi-billion-dollar fraud scandal in his state. So he's done. When his time's up, he's obviously not even running for re-election, so he will not get elected. So he should probably, I don't know, just resign. But
major breaking political news out of St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tim Walz will not seek re-election as governor, and what a fall from grace this has been for him. You might recall in the spring of 2023, he pushed through several progressive ideas to the state legislature that caught the attention of Barack Obama, who went to Twitter to give his endorsement for the programs.
Is that playing?
Which eventually caught the attention of people like Kamala Harris, who chose him to be her running mate as the vice president. Introduced in Chicago at the convention in August of last year, a debate that was an absolute disaster with J.D. Vance at one point called himself a knucklehead. But after reportedly billions of dollars have been stolen from taxpayers by way of the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz says he will not seek a third term. What a remarkable 2 years in the national spotlight has been for him, Dana.
And Walz hit Trump in his announcement.
Yeah, so, good riddance. Hopefully they can get somebody in there who's competent, who's going to watch over these things, who believes in actually having laws. That would be pretty nice, I think, for Minnesotans. Somebody who actually wants to run their country well, or their state well, who doesn't want to just, they're going to raise the taxes again. Property taxes, I guess, are going up. They got to pay for these things that this money wasted on, and it's just crazy that we have so much incompetence in this country, and a lot of incompetence in Democratic leadership. I mean, these governors of these blue states and mayors of these blue cities are like the stupidest people in the country. It's like these people have never done anything productive in their whole lives because they're so incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know. I mean, that's the way it looks to me, but I guess there probably is some plan behind there. It's probably something that's really, really destructive. But, it's just like Karen Bass in LA. Like, how did she screw up those fires so badly? Like, they're just not paying attention, or they're busy. They're focused on something else. I don't know. It's really, really strange. Or like these Trump and Vance were right again. Damn right they were. You know, the longer that Trump's in charge and the more that I see of Marco Rubio and JD Vance, the more that I like them. You know, I was not necessarily like a big Trump fan. I thought that, you know, he's better than Kamala, but the amount of things that he's been able to get done, the way that he's been able to, uh, you know, accomplish thing after thing after thing after thing and he has a very competent group with him now with Vance and Rubio and Hegseth. It's just unbelievable what could actually happen when your leaders really want to achieve things. And it's just shockingly fast. It makes me think, like, what in the hell were these presidents doing in the past? Like, they're just like kind of hanging out, talking every so often, and that's it. Getting us into a war. That's all they ever got done. It's like Trump's operating this thing like a businessman, you know, and I think that's the problem with a lot of these blue state problems. None of these people have been anything other than activists and bureaucrats. They never run a business. They've never had a real job. They just go right into activism training at university, and then they get out and they work at a nonprofit, or they go work for the attorney general, and then boom, they go into politics. So they don't really know anything about the real world, how the real world works, how normal working class people act, and what they like and what they think is enjoyable and how they want their lives to go. They don't really know any of these people. They're elites. They only know what elites think. And then they try to say they call us terrible people for not believing what they believe. You know? Much more Trump and Vance to come. Midterms will be interesting for sure, because 2026 is going to be a fascinating year. We're all going to have a lot of fun. We'll see. But a lot of things are going to happen this year. We'll see what he decides to do about the midterms and how he's going to try to rile up the base to get people to turn out. A lot of talk these days, about the filibuster. You know, should the Senate nuke the filibuster? Shouldn't they? I was talking to my senator a few months ago now, and I asked him, I said, why don't you guys nuke the filibuster? Why don't you get some of these executive orders codified? What are you guys doing? He's like, well, it takes a Republican. Well, you know, it takes a long time to get these bills through the thing and talk and you know, we have sort of a gentleman's handshake about the filibuster. You know, we won't touch it if they don't touch it. You know, as a pathetic answer. It's like, are you kidding me? Have you seen these Democrat senators? These people are fucking insane. You think for 1 second that when they get in power, they're not going to nuke that filibuster and ram through the craziest shit you've ever seen? That's exactly what will happen. So we got to be proactive, get that thing done, get these bills passed, get voter ID enshrined in law. You know, it's just like, it's like his mentality was from 1996 still, when we work across the aisle and we have all these like unwritten rules that we like to follow, and they all have their reasons and it's for our protection and all this kind of stuff. It's like, dude, you are out of touch. These people want to destroy you and everything that you hold dear. And they would in a second if they could. And they would take all your shit and they would take your power and they would oppress you as much as they wanted to, because that's the kind of people these people are. Now you're probably all nice people out there, so you would never do something like that. Well, that's why you're not a politician and you're not in the Democratic Party running for office. Because you have to be somewhat of a psychopath in order to even be in those groups. But you and me, we're not like that. So we just kind of assume they're not like that. So these good-willed Republicans think that that's still the game. It shows how out of touch they are. You got to go in there and you got to beat them over the head. And that's what Trump does so successfully, is he doesn't take any shit. He goes in there, he plays offense. He goes, he does something, does something. He's got a plan. He's got, basically confuse them with overwhelming amount of effort. If he's got all these things going on, then they can't attack. They have a hard time trying to attack one at a time. Where he's got shooting one over there and one over here, one over there, one over there, boom, 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 constant. It's like a gish galloping, in debate, when you're debating somebody and they just like rattle off 30 different things all in a row. So it's because you can't then like actually have one topic of debate to where you can really get this is what Trump does in politics right now. He's just like gish galloping with policy. He's like, boom, we'll go over here and we'll get Maduro and then we'll talk about this and we'll go there and we'll, like he's just throwing all this stuff out there so that there's not one constant conversation that can get really, really in depth. By the time they start getting there, then boom, he's onto something else. So he's throwing all this stuff kind of in their face. So that they can't really grab onto any one thing. And it's pretty amazing, So anyway, Senate Republicans are weak ass. All right, well, here's Tim Burchett. I hate it when I'm right, but Tim Burchett says he thinks there's a paper trail of money that was sent overseas that ended up back in the pockets of lawmakers in Washington, D.C. Who doesn't think that? Doesn't everybody think that? I mean, is this a controversial statement anymore? And he says lawmakers. He doesn't say Democrats. So he knows Republicans are in on this scam too. Their bank accounts don't get brought up that much, but they make a shit ton of money when they're in Congress as well. And they all love this little scam, this little scam they have with the NGOs. We'll send you, $1 billion, and then through various shell corporations, it'll get sent back to me. I'll get a speaking engagement. I'll get something, and and then the money goes into their campaign finance, their PACs or whatever. That this is going on. We all know this. We just don't know how we're supposed to stop it. I don't know. I think we just have to shut down NGOs. And are there good NGOs? Sure. But there's far too many corrupt ones and we can't tell which are which. So stop funding all these things. Stop sending all this government. Stop having the government be a middleman for where the money goes. It's a necessary way to create corruption and waste. Let the people form their own NGOs. You want to have foundations? That's fine. You're not getting any government money, but you can have billionaires who put money into that foundation, and you can do the same thing. You want to end homelessness? All right. Well, we're going to great. The billionaires in California have more than enough money to put into a charity that then goes out and serves the homeless. That's fine. There's no reason that the taxpayers need to be paying for that. There's no reason federal money needs to be getting sent to California for them to fix their homelessness problem. There's no reason for any of this. To think that we can't handle this kind of stuff on our own, apart from the government needing to fund it, is ridiculous. We have more than enough money. Local people are generous. Americans are generous people. When the SNAP benefits got cut off here in my community, everybody banded together to churches and nonprofits to put out the call that these people are going to be losing their benefits. We need to take care of our neighbors. And it was fine. We took care of it. Everybody got what they needed with no government necessary. I wish they would name names too. I think Tim Burchett knows who these people are. but he doesn't want to call them out publicly. A lot of them are probably Republicans too. Call them out and vote them out of office. Absolutely, 100,000%. We don't need to have people like that running our country. The problem is that the good people, the people that are normal people like you and me, we have lives, right? We have jobs and families and kids and events and, travel and normal things. We can't all go and stop doing that because we're like, oh, well, these fucking politicians are idiots, don't know what they're doing. So I guess we'll all just quit working and we'll go take their spots and get shit done. That's not we can't do that. We have trusted the system that we thought, okay, well, we'll elect these people. We think there's this certain agreement between us that you're going to go there, you're going to do the things that we wanted you to do, and then I can trust you that you'll work on those things. Well, that's not the way that the game is anymore. They're self-interested. They're not constituent interested. They'll act like they are for the brief time they need to in order to get your money, but then they go there and they won't do any of the shit that you want them to do. I think Republicans and Democrats both have this complaint with their sides. Why are you not doing the stuff that we sent you there to do? Why all of a sudden are you, why is there, everyone in the country agrees that there should be no insider trading in Congress, for example. Everybody thinks that. We think it's ridiculous that these people make millions and millions and millions of dollars because they have insider knowledge and they're making the laws, and then they can still invest based on the laws that they're making that they have insider information on. Everybody thinks that that's corrupt and that's bad. Can you get any of these guys to vote for that? No. Why? Because it's not about what you want. It's about what they can get. 95% of them, that's how they think. Then you get the few good ones in there who are actually trying to represent their people, who are just pissed off all the time because all these other people who just act like they care about their constituents, but don't really. But they know they have to put on the show to act like it. The few good ones get totally disillusioned and angry and bitter because they thought there was this agreement too. So a lot of these guys got to go. A Craigslist ad seeking child actors for daycare in Minneapolis has been discovered, with the poster requesting 20 children to act as clients while the state observes them to determine whether it's a legitimate daycare. I don't know if this is real or not. This sounds a little too on the nose. No experience required job title. I mean, this would be a pretty funny, satirical thing for somebody to make, because I think it's pretty funny, So whether that's true or not, I don't know. Maybe you guys know. Is this real, or is this just somebody? Is this a fake? But the thing is, they didn't even have to hire actors because the state never fucking came and checked to make sure that they were real and legit. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of $1 million they're paying out, which I don't know why they're funding daycares anyway, but that's a whole nother discussion. Handing out money. You think we should maybe go and check on these places to see if they're legit or not? Nah, I'm sure that everything's on the up and up. Why would we waste our time actually making sure that the taxpayer money is being spent properly? We're just gonna do nothing. This is why bureaucrats suck. They suck at everything. They have no skill or talent for almost anything other than doing the exact opposite of what they should do. That's why we need less of them, not more. It's like as the college tuition has gone through the roof. it's not like they're getting better teachers or they're getting nicer learning. I mean, some of them are getting learning centers and whatever, but what's happened basically is they're just hiring a bunch of bureaucrats to work inside the education system, to work in their college. More bureaucrats. Oh, administrator here, administrator. Why do we need all these administrators? How is there so much to administrate? What are they administering? You got people going to classes. Why is this so administratively intense? I guarantee 90% of what these administrators doing is total nonsense bullshit that doesn't need to be done, never needed to be started to be done in the first place. You know, it's from some policy or program that they had in the past that they need administered, but is a total negative for the school and the students and doesn't even do anything for education. You know, but we need another administrator for it. So the rising cost in tuition is basically because of that. And you're right. They don't care. It's not their money. You know, I've been on some foundations and nonprofits and stuff too, and sometimes that's even their attitude. You know, we waste a little bit. Who cares, right? They don't treat it like with respect because it's not theirs. I think normal people like us, we think, well, of course they're going to treat it with respect because that's what I would do. I'm like, this isn't my money. This is the people's money. I need to make sure that this stuff is getting spent well, that it's being watched over, that, you know, that nobody just comes and takes it. But that's not how these people think about it. And they don't really. This is why a large bureaucratic system and a large governmental system is always a terrible idea. And you need to let the people in their local communities administer this stuff. And I know there's all kinds of reasons why we need the government to be the one who is giving a bunch of money to people for daycares that aren't even real because, think of the children and shit like that. But if you would just let the people keep their money, they would have a better chance of being able to pay for their daycare. Or maybe they wouldn't even need to have two incomes. But oh yeah, I forgot about this lady. Oh gosh, Mamdani's newly appointed tenant advocate director thinks home ownership and private property is white supremacy. These people never quit. They are relentless. This is just this toxic university. I don't know what she graduated with. What kind of liberal arts degree do you think she graduated with? Gender studies, it's ridiculous. Home ownership and private property is white supremacy. How do you even get that? What kind of retarded leaps of logic do you have to go through in order to believe something that stupid? And I'm sure she's got all kinds of reasons. And she's got all kinds of friends who believe this kind of crap because they were indoctrinated by their retarded liberal professors. These people can turn anything into white supremacy. And they're always white people. It's always these liberal white ladies who say the stupidest shit, believe the stupidest things. They're in a cult, basically. They're brainwashed. They just mimic whatever they were told they were supposed to say by some authority figure. And they're like, oh, well, they must be right. They're in charge of this class. So I guess I shouldn't think for myself. I'll just, and that's what my friends are saying? Okay, all right, that must be true. No critical thinking skills, no ability to think, to challenge authority or to think differently. Just, yeah, okay. Private property is white supremacy. I wonder, so it's like, apparently only in white countries do people own stuff. I guess everything else is just communal property. Well, maybe that explains why when these foreigners come over here, they steal our shit. because they think they don't believe in private property. They think everything's the communities, and so they can steal your car or steal your money or steal your wallet or steal your life. You know, yeah, this white guilt stuff. Yeah, absolutely is what it is. You know, they've been browbeaten by their college professors, all of whom are probably white as well, into thinking that white supremacy lurks around every corner. The racism pops out from every side of the, side of the wall. It's hiding under the bed. You know, there's all this nobody, I guarantee there's got to be like 12 people in the whole country who believe that home ownership and private property is white supremacy. That is a stupid thing to think. I think I've got a clip here. Private property including an especially home ownership is a weapon. No, it's a weapon now. A weapon of white supremacy masquerading as wealth building public policy. Why is okay. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's hard to. So this is what I was saying earlier. Is like, what is the logic that's going on here? Wealth building in general white supremacy, and buying objects, is that white supremacy? Investing in the stock market, is that white supremacy? Is owning a business white supremacy? Is having $1 million white supremacy? What exactly are there? They could turn anything into that. They could say, oh yeah, ChatGPT, going on ChatGPT is white supremacy. Why? Anybody can go on ChatGPT. Doesn't have anything to do with any. They're like so obsessed with skin color. Like every good racist is. They're absolutely obsessed with skin color. They think that skin color actually drives behavior. They think that somehow if home ownership was a weapon of white supremacy, then how is not everybody in a house a white person? Like how they just are that bad at being white supremacists that they're like, ah, shit, that Indian guy bought a house. Dang it, we missed it. This is so retarded. I like people like this. They're funny too. This moron probably believes homeownership is white supremacy too. Retard is a word you use here? Wow. Yeah. You got a problem with that? You're retarded. You're not any more enlightened. Trust me. How did I get subscribed to this shit? If you, yeah, you can go ahead and unsubscribe. I don't give a fuck. Go get back on your high horse and ride off. We're sick of people like you. We don't need you anymore. Don't need you policing us anymore. We have moved past that. You do not realize it and still think that what you say matters as a way of shutting down conversation and stopping people from saying what they want to say. And thank God we are done with that. I mean, was that the most intense period of life between 2020 and 2025? I mean, geez, the intensity with which these word police, thought police came out and tried to shame and cancel and destroy everybody who didn't say things the way that they wanted them to be said was so absolutely crazily intense. Thankfully, Trump is dismantling that shit, and free speech is back. Because you get idiots like this running your society. Man, everybody gets oppressed. Everybody's life gets harder. Everybody gets angry at each other. Because these moral police word police, trying to constantly virtue signal to the world that they're a good person because they're so insecure with themselves, because they have no real beliefs. They have nothing that they really stand up for. Yes, gaslighting people, toxic manipulators. They absolutely are. And the mask has been pulled off. We all see this now. See how they lied about all kinds of things over the years. And now with X, we can see their deception, their lies, the way that they want to destroy, break down, control. You know, you talk with a leftist for 5 seconds, you get called 7 different names if you say something they don't like. You tell them something that they don't like, and now you're a white supremacist. Oh, you like anchovies on your pizza, fucking white supremacist. Oh, you don't like Chipotle? Yeah, white supremacist, racist, homophobe. You know, that's basically their go-to. That's all they have. Just to I don't know, because I don't have any actual arguments. I don't have any real beliefs. I don't really know anything because I've never looked into anything, and I've never researched anything, and I've never critically thought, and I don't know the logic. I don't know anything. Well, so racist, homophobe, white supremacist. That's it. That's all they got. That right there. That's the totality of the leftists. The totality of their encyclopedic knowledge. All of their knowledge base is just calling people names. That's how they argue. The facts aren't on their side. History's not on their side. Progress is not on their side. Nothing is on their side. They don't know this, of course, because they don't actually look into anything or do any kind of research or ever talk to people who have opposite opinions so that they can refine and figure out where they're wrong. They just stay ensconced in their little bubble. They're all of them riding on their white horses. This guy here, who's so offended at the word retard, probably is some white dude, white woman, white guy, probably lives in an all white neighborhood, you know, but then will feel justified in getting up on his high horse and calling people racists and homophobes. You know, it's the jig is up. You've been found out. Okay. So time to move on. All right. So here's a video of this lady with her stupid white supremacist, properties white supremacist. I haven't watched this. So let's see what she's.
I think the reality is that for centuries, we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model.
Guarantee she doesn't know anything about the centuries, what's happened over centuries. Doubt she's ever read a book on history. She doesn't sound that intelligent, honestly. So only a moron would believe the shit that she believes. So
model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently, and it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
What is that even supposed to mean? What is communal property? How does that even work? The government owns it? Who owns it? Who pays to build it? Who pays to maintain it? Who's going to own a house communally? I don't think these people actually have any policies how these things would work out. I think it's just words. It's just stuff that sounds good. Oh yeah, well, we're all going to be communal property because owning of property makes people gives a disparity in wealth. Okay, well, how are you going to do that? How does that make sense? How would you even put that into effect? The government's going to own all the houses. Who's owning the houses? Who's the one whose name's on the deed? No, I don't know. That's like way too detailed about like actual real life. I don't know. All I know is that we all need to own everything. You know, there was some funny memes after Maduro got arrested where people were saying like, and showing like Venezuelans flee or something, and they were free from the how did Mamdani say that, the warmth of collectivism or something like that. And there was people dancing because they were freed from their warmth of collectivism. You know, it's like everybody who lives in these collectivist type societies, what she's basically just talking about socialism here. I mean, it's not really complicated. She's acting like it's something that's like deep, but it's not. She's talking about socialism, you know, communal property ownership, the collective is more important than the individual, and stupid ideas like that. But, you know, the people who actually live like that, who live in a collectivist society, they get oppressed. They don't have access to food and water and clean conditions. They don't own anything. They have no wealth. They have no future. They have no opportunity. They are stuck. So they get the fuck out of there and they come to the United States and they get rich. And then they're like, the United States is great. And then you get somebody like this who gets to grow up in the United States, probably rich girl, I'm guessing, probably went to a private, you know, education, probably got into, you know, Columbia University or some shit like that, and comes out and acts like all the things that gave her everything that she has are bad. Whereas, you know, like, it's so annoying. So annoying because it's always these spoiled white rich kids who believe this shit. You know, I grew up poor. All right. And now I've made money. And I can do what I want to, and I can travel to other countries, and I can buy a wonderful house and do all that, have a family. And I'm happy. I'm grateful for that I live in a country that's like that. I don't want to own everything with everybody else. I don't want to live in a communal house, and neither does anybody else. Hey there. Retards mount up. Yeah. You know, I mean, one of the fun reasons to use that word is just because you can really get the word police all worked up, and it's kind of funny, you know, just to kind of troll them because they're like, oh, their assholes pucker up real tight, and it's entertaining. So I don't mind doing it. I think that it's what they get. They deserve it for being such weirdos. Yeah, virtue. I mean, she's basically virtue signaling here, you know, and she doesn't know anything. She's never actually accomplished anything. And these are all the people that Mamdani is because he's a person who's never accomplished anything, and he's a rich kid who came from a rich family. And so like it's like these people don't have an actual identity, and so they wear these political identities as some kind of like costume, and it makes them feel good about themselves, makes them feel like they have an identity when they really don't, because they've never forged a real identity out in the real world where they're like, I'm a professional at this, I have a skill, I'm really good at this thing, because they've never really had a real job. You know, Mamdani was a fake rapper for a while, and that's basically all he's ever done. You know, they have no accomplishments out in the real world, dealing with real people, dealing with real structures, and thinking through real problems that they just, AOC is a good one. Jasmine Crockett, another one. Like these people who are going to tell us that they know how to run a country or a city as complicated and as large as New York City, that these losers who've never done or accomplished a single fucking thing in their whole life are going to come in here and tell us the way that the world should work on no. I mean, you could just see right through it. It's like there's this, you know, first of all, this thing is never going to happen. Like, she can say all she wants that this is communal and blah, blah, blah. It's all ideology bullshit. It's never going to happen. Most of the stuff Mamdani wants, it's never going to happen. Never going to happen. You can say all you want that, you know what, we're just going to make murder illegal and therefore the murder is going to stop. You know, like, this is the childish level of thought that these people have. Yeah, we're just going to do communal living kind of because white owners, house white supremacy. Okay. All right, girl, have a seat. Let the men run this place. Oh, here's another thing I find is kind of interesting about the Democrats, right? So the Democrats are the ones who claim to be, open-minded, and we need to be open borders, and we need to be, desegregating spaces, and we need to be pushing. We basically need to be getting everybody to rub up against one another in social situations, so that we can put to rest our divisions and our stereotypes and prejudices about people who are different from us, right? This is a Democrat idea for a long time now. So we need to get black kids in white schools and white kids in black schools and Hispanics, and we need to kind of all be working in the same spaces, so that after we do that, and there's sociological studies that prove that this is the case, after you work with somebody who's different, then you attribute to their group a lot less negative stereotypes and things like that. Okay, so this is kind of the Democratic thing. Now Republicans do that as well. We're not as vocal about it, and we don't, shame everybody constantly about it. But the Republican Party's very diverse. You just get a diversity of people if you want to actually succeed in the business world. Well, you just gotta have a diversity of people because you want the best people, and those people are going to be diverse most likely. So anyway, but then you get studies like this, and there's lots of studies like this that come out that show that the Democrats are basically closed-minded bigots. And so this one here says 41% of Democratic college students would not support. 41% of college students, Democrat, would not support a Republican-run business. So because the business is run by a Republican, even though maybe they're running the business well and they're providing you with the service that you need, 41% of them. Now, mostly this is because they are retards who have not had much life experience, so they will get rid of this belief probably the day after they graduate. But 41% of Democratic college students would not support a Republican-run business. Meh, you're a Republican. 37% would not be friends. 37% would not be friends with a Republican. How closed-minded and bigoted and cordoned off do you have to be? Now, what if that Republican's black? Hey, man, would they? Maybe the other 63%. Maybe that's what they said. Like, well, I would be friends with a Republican as long as they were black or gay, or some kind of minority Republican. Then I would. But the white ones, no, not doing that. And 30% would not work for one. 30% of Democrats would not work for a Republican. 30% of these college students said they would not work for a Republican. It would be too hostile of an environment, or some shit like that. This is exactly right. This is exactly right. Those claiming tolerance are intolerant, so intolerant. They do actually say things like, the only thing that you can be intolerant about is intolerance, right? Stupid shit like that. And it's like, all right, I get it. I mean, we all get it. Like, we don't want to be around assholes. All right? Nobody wants to. And if you're not an asshole, that's fine. We don't care what color your skin is or whether you're, like, most people don't care about any of that stuff. They don't make it the primary decision-making tool that they have. They don't make their politics the primary decision maker. That's just one of the things that they do. It's not, but with Democrats, because it's such an identity issue, they identify as Democrat, that they can't even be around Republicans right now. Like, they're so much. It's really pathetic what they've done to these kids. 30% would not work for a Republican, 37% would not be friends. And then the Republican numbers regarding Democrats were 7%, 5%, and 7%. So only 7% of Republicans would not support a Democrat-run business. That's a reasonable, normal way to think about things. 5%, only 5% would not be friends with a Democrat. So look, we're much friendlier. We're like, hey, we disagree on politics. That's okay. There's a lot more to life than politics. Now, politics are important, but surely we can find other things to have in common. It's not a big deal if you're a Democrat. One of the things that might be interesting to look into the study a little more is, since women so highly outnumber men in college now, I think it's like 60-40, is that a majority of these Democrats, and these young girls tend to be Democrats. I wonder if a majority of these are women, because this kind of sounds more like female stats, and then the Republicans would be guys, to where the guys would be like, yeah, you're different, whatever, we can get along. The women are like, they're the morality police, and the Republicans are immoral, therefore they cannot tolerate immorality. They probably say retard, and that is just so unacceptable. And it's like a weakness of character, I think, to not be able to be around someone who disagrees with you, not be friends with the person who disagrees with you, to not be able to be in the same spaces or in the same organizations as people who disagree with you. So they've really failed their people and make them really weak like this, to where they feel like they have to protect themselves so much from something that's different than them, even though they're the ones who claim you shouldn't cordon yourself off from people and protect yourself from people, right? These are not these are the open borders people. But here there's like, oh, nope, but there's this border between me and Republicans, strong border there, can't cross that. So it just goes to show like how intolerant and how bigoted and how closed-minded the Democrats are. And it's not getting any better, apparently, because these are college students and they still are believing this kind of shit. Now, this is what I want. Like, I think inherently based in here is that, like, the idea that Republicans are white. I think, right? Because it's like 30% of you wouldn't work for a Republican. What if it was a black-owned business? You would just not work there because he's Republican? I find that I think a lot of this would just like make their brain malfunction, because they're like, what? They're black Republicans? What? Who allowed that? Who allowed gay people to be Republicans? We were not watching. We missed that one. We thought they were all just straight white men. So you wouldn't be friends with a gay person? Why not, Democrats? That's really embarrassing. What do you got here? The liberal women are stuck on my body, my choice. They can't see beyond that. Yeah, that's just gonna be a thing. They really got brainwashed into believing all that kind of stuff, and they can't really get outside of it. But I don't know. I think over time that will all change. The Democrat Party's days are numbered. They're just basically a party of all the worst ideas, and that kind of a party can only stand for so long. And especially they're losing a lot of the young men. And whether you like it or not, men are the ones who run all these things, who run these parties, who keep them cohesive, who forge an identity for the party and all that kind of stuff. And when you lose the men, the party is just going to dissolve into factions, and there's not going to be a clear leader, and there's not going to be clarity of purpose or goal. So that way Republicans, we have clarity, we have strong leaders, we have competence and all that kind of stuff. And, that's because we're the party who welcomes men. So I've seen this before a few times, but this is President Trump video of testimony before Congress that Biden gave away $93 billion to his buddies in the 76 days from when Trump won the presidency to when he took office. So in 76 days at the end of Biden's presidency, I'm sure Biden didn't do this, but his administration gave away $93 billion to his buddies. Corruption at all, you think? Probably not. Probably not corruption. Probably not fraud or theft or any of that stuff in there. That was probably all legit stuff. And Democrats are probably really looking into this and making sure that Biden wasn't wasting taxpayer dollars and giving it away to buddies for favors, and then they give it back to Biden when he's out of office and stuff like that. I doubt there's any of that kind of stuff going on. I doubt that money. I doubt any of those billions of dollars trickled back into the DNC's coffers. I doubt it. Yeah, probably not. It was probably all legit money, all legit expenses, and all very on the up and up, just to help the American people. Yeah, or to save the climate. Because really that's what this money is for. It's just the Biden administration was so corrupt. It just doesn't end. It's just one thing after the other. From, the Obama Biden, a lot of this is Obama's fault. All the way at the Russiagate thing, trying to commit treason basically and prevent Donald Trump from becoming president, trying to arrest and throw him in prison for the rest of his life on trumped up charges and bullshit. It's just, man, they went off the deep end. They really went off the deep end. They went all in, balls to the walls corruption, balls to the walls. We will take power and hold it forever. We will control this country. We will control everything about it and all the narratives and all the people. They got a little taste of that with COVID, and they tried their best. That's what they really want. Ultimate, total control over you, over your money, over your property, over your everything. They think that they have a right to it. They think that they are better at it than you, that they know better than you. And that's what they tried. And Donald Trump was the thing that was standing in their way. So they threw everything at him. It lost, and I think he broke them into pieces. All that's going away. The transgender stuff's going away. These Mamdani and his couple stupid friends who are going to try to do their little socialist, put on their little socialist play, because they were theater kids. They're going to play socialist for a few years. Nothing's going to happen. And then basically it's done. The socialist aspect, nobody believes in that stuff anymore. Nobody believes in transgender women in women's sports. Nobody believes in transitioning kids. Nobody thinks that the government's competent to handle trillions of dollars without wasting most of it. All that. It's big government ideas, done. Let's see, what are some of the other ones? I don't know. That, defunding the police is a valuable option, all that kind of stuff. It's all done. And it's great. Oh, okay. Well, this is another thing that's really annoying that keeps happening. So this book that I was talking about earlier, The Identity Trap by some guy whose name I can't pronounce. He goes through a lot of this stuff and kind of gives you a background of why these lefties come to such strange conclusions, because a lot of it's about ideas, power, identity, and how those things all intertwine. And so, because I've been really annoyed that there's been so many stories of like criminals who have committed crime after crime after crime after crime, and then these judges just keep letting them out. Oh, well, yeah, you assault, battery, car theft, breaking and entering, and these people would do this over and over and over again, as if and then they'll be out like the next day, sometimes with no bond. All they'll do is say that they're going to come back in and appear before the judge, and then they never show back up again. And then they end up murdering somebody, and so then the authorities are like, oh shit, now I guess we have to arrest him for real. And it puts everybody in more danger. And so I've been wondering what is behind this, and a lot of it does have to do with just thinking that the criminal is only doing criminal activity because of the society that he was born into, and it basically made him do the crime. And so then what? You're going to let the society punish him for the crime that the society made him commit? That's not fair to him. Because I think everything's just a social construct. Even you committing crimes is a social construct. So the society is to blame because it constructed you. All right. It's nothing to do with, your mentality or your parents or the way that you, have chemicals malfunctioning in your brain or any of that kind of stuff. Nope. It's society created you. Society made you. And so if society has to get the punishment for it, like breaking into your house, then that's fine because society, who owns the house, is the one who made you break into it. Right? You see how twisted this can get? And so then they have no, what would it be, category of or sort of mental infrastructure for how to punish. Because how are you going to punish somebody? You need to punish society, really, because society is the one responsible for all this murder and stuff. So how do you punish the criminal? And they've got nothing. They're like, well, you don't. You don't. You just let them back out into society and let society deal with the consequences that society created, right? And so because normal people like us, we look at this and we're like, well, what about like the person who's going to get murdered, right? Because we're thinking about the individuals. We're thinking about the individuals involved. Well, this individual guy has chosen to break into houses. This individual guy is going to get stabbed by that guy if you let him out. Well, so be it, they think. But we think, well, that's a bad thing. If I don't want to get stabbed and I don't want my friends or family or anybody to get stabbed, so we should probably not let that guy out and go stab people, right? But that's how a normal person would think about it, and you would be correct to think that way. But because these people believe in this social construct of everybody, your behaviors and everything, like you don't really choose to do anything. You didn't choose to live where you live. You didn't choose, and so then that where you live has certain rules to it and it teaches you how to be. And so then it's not surprising when you come from a place and then you commit crimes. Like we can't hold the responsible, the individual responsible. We have to hold the society accountable. And that's where you get like social justice and all this kind of stuff. So it's not surprising to see this stuff as ridiculous and stupid as it seems to like a normal common sense person. You get stuff like this. A judge denied the FBI's request to involuntarily commit an 18-year-old who had threatened to harm himself and others. He later planned an ISIS-inspired mass attack. There was no justification for releasing him, and the judge must be held responsible. Yeah. Let's take a look.
Originally, I think it is notable, as part of their efforts, the FBI took Mr. Sturdivant to a state magistrate judge to try to have him involuntarily committed. And that was because he had threatened not only other people's lives, but in the process said that he planned to die by a policeman shooting him. So he had threatened other people's lives and self-harm, but the state magistrate judge denied involuntary commitment. Fortunately, the FBI did not give up then and continued to build a federal case and get the evidence they needed to charge him and detain him and keep everyone safe on New Year's Eve. And I'm very, very thankful for that because countless lives were saved. Originally,
the federal judges are out of fucking control. It is insane. How were they able to so deeply infiltrate all of the institutions? I I mean, we got leftists controlling all kinds of things, stopping all kinds of progress that the American people want. And they have just done a phenomenal job of infiltrating all the institutions. It's really, I mean, I'm like impressed at how good they did it and how just like quickly, I guess, while the rest of us weren't paying attention. And it's just like, boom, now all the federal judges and all the judges, and they are all these crazy lunatics who don't believe in law. You know, it's like, what the hell? How did that happen? How did these people, they were, wow. So yeah, I agree with this. Trump was born for this reason. Can you imagine if he didn't step up? We would all be New York. That's the direction the country was going for sure. You know, that would be terrible, terrible, terrible. Hey, BS. Good to see ya. I saw all your songs drop. Yeah, well, I made those a while ago, so hopefully you like them. You know, let me know what you think if you got a favorite one or something. But I used this program called Suno AI, Suno.ai, and it's really fun to mess around with, and it's free. You can just go on their website or go on the app, and I think they'll let you make quite a few songs for free. I mean, I'd probably make dozens of songs. So I'd recommend going on there and messing around with it. It's fun. You can go to Chat GPT and have it write you the lyrics if you want, and then you plug it in there and tell it what genre of music, and then it just boom. So, you know, I was at the beach a few months ago, and I made some for funny beach country songs, and it's about, you know, sitting in their chair and drinking their beer and stuff like that. So it was pretty fun to mess around with. You know, I was just seeing the other day that on the Billboard charts, the number one song was a country AI song, and the number one Christian song was an AI song. So AI is coming in the music world. You know, we're probably going to really decimate a lot of artists. And it's really good at it. It's really, really good at it, and it does it quickly. It's like, how can AI be so good at something so creative that we think of as creative? But it seems to be the best at those things. It's really good at writing. It's really good at making music and poetry. It's you know, I don't know how it does that so well, but then it can't do math. It sucks at doing math. If you guys ever tried doing math stuff with Chat GPT or any of the AI, it's like, how did you even get that? And then you argue with it, and it won't believe you or change its answer. It's pretty funny. It seems like math would be the best at, right? Because it's like, oh well, there's only this amount of factors, you know, and like it's very straightforward. Because that's how you would think of a machine thinking, as like in mathematical terms, but it doesn't think that way, and it's good at the creative stuff somehow. So anyway, yeah, I recommend go to Suno AI. Now, too bad they weren't a sponsor or something. I don't get paid for endorsing them or something, but yeah, I'd recommend going there and messing around. It's just, you can make a lot of funny songs, and that's where I made all those songs, and so it's a good time. Hey guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. You know, comment on the videos. I read all the comments, so I'm happy to always get into little debates or just to connect that way a little bit. You can follow me on X as well. I live stream on X, so go over there and I repost stuff from that with comments and things. So a little different than YouTube stuff, but I'd like to build up my base over there too. So let's see, what do we have here? Is this more fraud? CEO of Gateway Community Services, who received $28 million in taxpayer funds under the Biden administration, ran for president of Jubaland, Somalia, while publicly bragging that he was funding a privately armed militia there with US dollars. Years of systematic money laundering where your tax dollars were funding terrorists, but Democrats would rather point a finger at Nick Shirley and say he's the problem. Well, that pretty well sums everything up right there. That is fucking ridiculous. This is where we're at. This is what's been going on for the last 10 years, this kind of shit, where this Gateway Community Services, this is all fake money that he stole, right? In another one of these scenarios, stolen money, frauded us of our money, ran for president in Jubaland, Somalia, and armed a militia. So if he lost, he could go and seize power. Oh my gosh. You know, there's a lot of speculation that most of this money that got sent over to Somalia, or a lot of the money that sent over to Somalia, went to arm an Al-Qaeda faction in Somalia, because it's all tribal warfare over there. You know, even in Minneapolis, they have their different tribes from Somalia, and that's really their first what do you call it? Their first line of meaning or whatever relationship that matters the most is their tribe, and then at the bigger scale Somalia, but really it's their tribes. And so they're even fighting in Minneapolis. They have tribal wars, and over in Somalia it's all tribal war. And so a lot of this money is sent over there to fund their tribe to have war against the other tribes. And it's just so ridiculous. And I mean, this is like a 95-5 issue. Nobody in America likes this shit. Nobody likes this money being taken from taxpayers. I don't care, Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. This is something we can all agree on. We all hate this shit, and we think it has to stop. But the Democrat leaders and the media are so out of touch with normal people that they, instead of actually going and investigating this stuff and calling out these people and calling out the leadership who failed and did all that stuff, rather they're bitching and moaning about Nick Shirley, there's a YouTuber who went there and basically blew this whole thing open, and they keep trying to run him down. They keep trying to impinge on him and sully his name and make it seem like, oh, he's just a nobody, he's a YouTuber, well, nothing to see here. Like, instead of actually, and this is what they always do, they shoot the messenger, right? They hate the messengers. And they think that the messenger is the problem. And they just keep shooting the messengers. Well, no, the actual problem is the problem. That's what normal people can see it easily. It's obvious to see. Well, sure, yeah, let's listen to what he has to say.
Here are the facts. A company whose CEO reportedly spent time traveling to Somalia and running for president there and organizing a privately funded militia, all while his organization was overbilling programs funded by Maine taxpayers.
Oh, this is in Maine. Okay.
Where is the outrage from Maine Democrats? Where are the press conferences? Where are the calls for accountability? Here are the facts.
Yeah, this is going to get wild, guys. This is going to get absolutely wild. There's going to be so much corruption that it's going to just like, we're not even going to be able to comprehend it. We're like, what were these people doing this whole time? How did you let this happen? We trusted you to be our leaders, and you just let us get everything taken. What? We got to clean house. Especially the Democratic Party has to clean house, because they got a whole bunch of corrupt losers running everything there. And I think we need to just shut down all the NGOs. Let's shut down. Don't give these NGOs any more taxpayer money. Done. Over. They don't deserve it. They don't track it. We can't keep track of it. There's too many of them. How are you supposed to track 50,000 NGOs? We don't. And then the money just gets squandered. They hire a CEO for $1 million a year to run some, Children of the Future program that doesn't do shit. And then bam, there goes $100 million. We just shut it down. We'll start it over, get rid of all that stuff, keep our money, give it back to the taxpayers, let them decide what they're going to do with the money instead. Don't give it to NGOs. They absolutely do hate it when their corruption is exposed. You know, I forget. I think it was Elon Musk had a quote where he was talking about when he was um, working at PayPal, and he would say the people who always bitched the most or made the most noise about fraud were the people doing fraud themselves, like the ones who squealed the most and hated the most of people talking about fraud were the fraudsters. You know, it makes sense. Like, of course. Yeah. So if thou doth protest too much, you know, and there's something to be said about that for sure. So they do hate it when their corruption is exposed. You know, every corrupt person hates when their corruption is exposed. You know, but we don't really know how important that is to them to keep their corruption hidden, because we're not corrupt people. We're just normal people. And these you know, we got to get these people out of office. We got to get them replaced with projection. Exactly. Yeah. And then and if the Democrat's not projecting, he's not talking, because it's a constant projection, constant. Oh, you're this, you're that, you do this, you do that, and then they're actually the ones who are all those things and do all those things. You know, they just can't help themselves. Oh yeah, here's some New York. They lit up their buildings green in recognition of Muslim American Heritage Month. So, you know, I doubt many people actually knew that's why they were green, and most people didn't give a shit. But okay, yeah, here's something this is a problem, you know. Starting today, undocumented individuals in Illinois will be granted access to state and local financial aid for college. Okay, so, you know, one thing so these undocumented, they're already in schools, right? They're allowed in elementary schools, they're allowed in high schools. Generally, these people don't own homes. They're renting a property, or they're renting an apartment. So their kid is going to school. They're not paying in any property tax. So the locals are paying to educate their child, and they're allowed in. So this is an extension of that, because the taxpayers fund the colleges. And so then you can see the easy logic for these people. Well, we're already funding their education, so what's another 4 years of funding their education, right? It's just more screwing over the citizens by the Democrats, by our leaders. You know, oh, sure. Well, where is that money going to come from? Oh, well, shit. Turns out we're going to have to raise property taxes so we get more funding for our schools. You know, I'm not necessarily opposed to foreigners coming over here and going to our colleges and universities, because they pay tuition. Now, I think the amount of foreigners we have in our schools, like, local people should almost be able to go for free because there's so many foreigners paying full tuition, yet somehow the school still needs more money. You know, but in this case, with the undocumented people, these people are not paying tuition. You know, so it's not like the school's making money off this deal. All it's doing is just cost, more taxes, more cost, more bleeding the people dry, more, you know. Result, there will be less money for Illinois citizens to attend college or trade school because a large portion of the funding will be shifted to individuals living in our country illegally. Yeah, and this is what they'll do. I guarantee this is what they'll do. Well, the costs of education have gone up so high, we just have to raise taxes. It's like the costs didn't go up, actually. You decided to give a bunch of free tuition to a bunch of people who shouldn't get it. Now, maybe they could go to school, but they got to pay for it, like somebody from another country, because they are somebody from another country. It's so crazy, the things that these people come up with. You know, it's all virtue signaling, you know, wanting to feel like they're a good person. And look, we're helping the little guy. I don't know. Anyway. Well, let's see. Oh, gosh. Oh, jeez. Did you guys see this? I forgot about this. Somali's ambassador to the UN is a daycare administrator in Ohio. So this guy doesn't live in the U.S. He's not an American citizen, I guess I should say. He's Somali. He's the ambassador from Somalia to the UN. And he's got a daycare in Ohio that's that's getting American money, that's defrauding the American people. That's wild. It's like, sure, why not? Of course. Hell, let all the ambassadors defraud us, let them all take our money. Let everybody in every country just take whatever they want from us. And that's okay. We just have to keep our mouths shut, like, this is ridiculous. Nobody's okay with this, and I know a lot of people complaining, and I've complained a lot too about, like, where are all the arrests? Why aren't things being shut down? Why aren't people in handcuffs? Why is there nothing really seeming like it's getting done on the fraud and crime front? Trump can send the National Guard into these different cities, and now you see that our murder rate is down, our car theft is down, all drug overdoses are down, all these things. So it's like, look, it worked, and it's working, and it's a good thing. Why can't we arrest anybody? Why can't we actually interrogate anybody, or why can't we get to the bottom of all this fraud and put these people in prison? They're all over the place. There's tons of them. And it's like, they just walk around freely knowing that they just have no consequence. Nobody's okay with this. I mean, the Obama and Biden regime did a lot of damage to the United States, did a lot of damage to the trust in government. So now, you guys are probably a lot like me. The FBI says something, you're like, maybe, probably not, probably hiding something. There's probably something else going on. CIA says something, probably can't trust them. I don't know. Yeah, politicians said, no, I don't think I can trust those. A study comes out from Harvard University, and you're like, no, probably not. It's probably distorted in some way, so that because they got propaganda, they've got like, you can't trust any of these people anymore. They've lied over and over and over and over again. Now we found out, so we have to clean house, get these people out of there. Yeah, you got to love the logic of the liberals, right? So this goes kind of back to the Nick Shirley thing, where they just want to shoot the messenger because they hate the message. And it's a Washington State AG warns citizen journalists to stop investigating Somali daycares or face potential hate crime charges. If you point out that we've got people here committing fraud, you're a hater, racist. How dare you look into fraud and crime? I mean, this is how twisted and ridiculous this worldview is. This guy probably really believes that. Probably went to an Ivy League school or some shit. And his brain's so jumbled up and retarded that he would make a statement like this. Instead of, hey, I want to quit. I want to stop crime in my state as well. I'm the fucking AG. Nope. Well, you can't, see, the thing is, you can't look into the crimes done by people with darker skin than you. Can't look into those crimes, or else it's a hate crime. It's a hate crime. So stupid. Nobody agrees with this guy. Nobody. It's this tiny group of radical wackos who make us think that this is like a large group of Americans believe in something this ridiculous. Nobody agrees with this guy that looking into Somali daycares is a hate crime. How stupid would you have to be to believe this? But these people, they just say it all the time. It's these leaders, it's the elites. The elites are the ones who say this kind of crap. And they know that it's like, it used to scare people. is why they do it still. It doesn't scare anybody anymore. Now it's just funny that they're so stupid to say this kind of stuff. It used to be like, well, gosh, I don't want people to, oh, hey, geez. I don't want people to, look at me that way or think of me that I am. So I'm going to do whatever I can to try to stay away from doing that kind of stuff, from any kind of, and now it's like, get out of here. We know you people don't really believe that. You just use it as a tool to manipulate for power. It's a power move to manipulate people, to shut down, because he doesn't want it exposed that they're in cahoots with it. That's what it is. This guy knew what was going on. This guy's getting kickbacks from these daycares. This guy knows that the Democrat Party is getting funded by these people, because that was the deal, that we will give you this. We'll look the other way, but we will require donations to our party or personally. And that's what he's really concerned about. He doesn't care about the Somali daycares being investigated. He cares about it. If it was simply just that the Somalis were doing this, he doesn't think it's a hate crime or any of that stuff. That's just something he says. What he's doing is he's trying to stop it, the investigation from happening, so that he personally or his friends don't get found out. Because he's a dishonest loser who's trying to take advantage of the American people. This guy. Oh yeah, lots of burning and fires across Europe. So 505 arrests and 403 in custody. Cultural annual infidel car burning festival. That's hilarious. The annual infidel car burning festival outdid itself this New Year's Eve. At least 1,173 vehicles torched across France, smashing last year's 984. Jeez. Just in one day at a New Year's Eve event. Across, I was at New Year's Eve. 505 arrests. They really went all out this time. Record-breaking celebrations from the religion of peace and tolerance. This isn't random. It's a ritual of destruction fueled by unchecked mass migration and Islamization. So, yeah, let's take a look. I mean, this is terrible. They burnt down a church in the Netherlands with fireworks, because there's videos of these guys like shooting fireworks into buildings and they burning buildings down, burn down this historic church. It's like, how long is it going to take for Europe to get its head out of its ass? It's just so easy to see. It's easy to see how unbeneficial this relationship is to the people in France. Maybe somehow it's beneficial to the leaders, it's beneficial to the elites, it's beneficial to the billionaires, but to the actual people in those countries, there's no benefit to bringing these people into your country. Now, that sounds nationalistic, and you shouldn't be nationalistic, because it'll cause bigotry and it'll cause racism and it'll cause all these things. So we just have to let them in, because we don't want totalitarian bigotry to grow in our countries or some stupid thing like that. It's not bigotry to want to keep your culture the way that it is. It's not bigotry to want to have a culture and to want to protect it and to maintain it. And now nobody's saying no immigrants should ever be allowed to come into any country at any time ever. It's simply a matter of numbers. It's difficult for a society to stay stable if you bring in a certain percentage of people who are from different cultures. It's just a fact. It's okay. It's not racist. It's not evil. It's just a fact. And they brought in too many. It's causing instability. And that's what this whole thing's about. So what do? You've got to bring the numbers back down to what a society can absorb. Everybody's okay with there being immigrants. Nobody's supposed to immigrants. We first of all, we like immigrants that like being in our countries, that like our country. Nobody's against immigrants that like their country. They love those immigrants. They're often better citizens than the homeborn people. It's just that when you overwhelm the system, you get, negative effects. And I don't understand why the leaders don't understand this. So now you've got a bunch of people, this is France, a bunch of people who they're not connected to the society. They're not in the fabric of society. They're outsiders. And they think that they can stay outsiders because it wasn't really their intention to come and integrate into the society. That's not really what they wanted to do. There's a reason why these people, these extremist Muslims, come to Europe and the West and don't go to places like Saudi Arabia or Dubai or Qatar and stuff like that. It's because the people who run those countries know the kinds of problems these extreme Muslims bring with them, and they don't want them there. They won't allow them in. They say, you're not coming into my country and causing a bunch of chaos and destruction and disruption. No way. So we need to take our lead from Muslim countries who know the Muslim world way better than we could ever possibly know it. And if they're saying, hey, don't let these people into your country because now extremism is going to come out of Europe, Islam is going to come out of Europe now because they're letting the extremists into their country because they don't know anything about Islam or the Muslim world. They just think, people are people, so you can just let them in and whatever. Well, the countries in the Middle East, they know that these people are radicalized. They're not interested in them being in their cultures at all. Not because they're Muslim. They don't dislike them because they're Muslim. They dislike them because they're radical fundamentalists who have a very dedicated view of Islam taking over the world. And they feel like it's a holy mission to do so, and to use any means possible. And instead of just listening to these people who are experts in Islamic and Muslim culture, the West, in its arrogance, thinks that it knows better, and that it can just bring them all in, and we'll just all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Nothing bad will happen. Meanwhile, buildings are burning and stabbings and all this kind of mayhem. And now the people are scared. The people are riled up. The people don't know what to do. They're confused. They don't know what the future is. There's no guidance. There's no leadership. There's nothing other than just like, shut the fuck up and deal with, and that's it. Shut up, basically. It's like, well, all of that is a bad situation. And none of that makes any real sense if you're trying to actually run your society and lead your society and give your people the best experience of a society, So I don't know if in Europe, maybe somebody would know this, in Europe. So like, for example, the big driving factor in the US as to why the Democrats were so insistent on sanctuary cities and so insistent on specifically opening the borders and letting people in here is because they could lure them into big democratic cities and with the promise of free stuff. And then because of the way that our census works, it basically translates into more political power for Democrats. So if they can get a bunch of illegals to move to LA and these big Democrat strongholds, then it inflates their population, because in the US, we count not just citizens in the population, we count all people. So if you're an immigrant, if you're an illegal, If you're a citizen, all of you get counted in the census, and then we apportion representative power based on that, based on population. The House of Representatives are assigned based on the population. So California has more representatives than they should. If we only counted citizens, California would lose a few seats. And so they knew this game. It was a way of them, of a power play, of them being totally 100% dedicated, not to the country or to what's best for the country and the people and the Americans, but what's best for them and their political ends, because all that they care about is power over you, power over the country, power over the institutions, power over what everyone says, what everyone does, because they do believe in socialism and that sort of an ideal, to where the elites are the ones who know best. They're going to tell everybody else how to live their lives and what to do, and then everything will work out much better that way. And it's a gross mythology that has never worked out, but it's not stopping them. They're dedicated to it. Well, let's see. Oh, I already talked about this guy. Well, I think that might be all for me for today, guys. I appreciate you all joining me. This was fun. I haven't done one of these for a while, so hopefully you'll join me again. I'll probably do another one soon. If you guys would do me a favor and like and subscribe, maybe check out my X account, subscribe to that. And just try to comment. I'll try to respond as best I can. I do like to have that kind of an interaction with comments, so that I'm not just like me talking to myself here. Great. I appreciate everybody joining me, and I will see you soon.